When we think of cinematic shots, our mind often goes to these complex cameramoves that typically require expensive gear like dollies, cranes, or even Steadicam. There is something very powerful in just the simplicity of using a tripod. In fact, some of the biggest directors of all time have made their mark by using some of these very effective techniques. Filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick and Wes Anderson, and of course many more. So today we're going to break down some of these techniques using some of the real-world examples that I have actually used in my film The Divide, as well as showcase some examples from some of the most iconic directors on the planet. The first shot that we're going to talk about is something called a static shot. The static shot is the foundation of cinematic storytelling. It's simple, yet powerful. But by keeping the camera still, what you do is you force the audience to be locked in on what's happening on the frame. In my film The Divide, we strategically used a lot of static shots in this scene because we wanted the audience to pay very close attention to the dialogue between both of the characters and not be distracted by too much camera movement. Now, of course, you're obviously going to need a tripod, but the most important thing to pay close attention to is the composition. In this shot right here, we place both of our characters in the third of a frame, while using the shoulder in the foreground in the opposite third of the frame. This is something called an over-the-shoulder shot, or commonly known as an OTS shot. Another thing to pay very close attention to when you're talking about static shots is shapes and symmetry in your frame. Taking a look at this scene right here from 2001: Space Odyssey, this static shot becomes a lot more interesting because the shape that our character is in and the movement of our character in the frame. And taking a look at this shot from The Shining, they use leading lines to actually frame the subject. And even though the camera is not moving in these shots, there still is something very interesting because of the composition, the framing, the symmetry, and the leading lines. Static shots work great for moments of introspection, tension, or to emphasize the environment, and what I love about them is that they allow a scene to breathe and give your audience a chance to absorb the visuals. If you pay close attention to Blade Runner 2049, they had no limitation on budget or what they could do with the camera movement, but they decided to shoot most of this film as static shots because they gave you that moment of introspection. As the audience, we're seeing things from a main character's perspective. So just because they have the ability to do all of these things, it's funny how they decided to use the most basic technique of all, and just locking a shot off on sticks. The next shot that we're going to talk about that you could easily achieve with a tripod is something called a match cut shot. Now, a match cut is actually a transition, and the whole concept of a match cut shot is to use two scenes with a similar composition or a particular point in the frame, whether that be an object or a person that takes up the same space or has the same point in the frame. For example, in my film, I wanted to show the passing of time, and I wanted to use a match cut transition to do this. So by matching myself in the frame with these two shots, you're able to create an interesting and symbolic transition. And to do this, of course, you're going to need a tripod. And it's very important that you use a tripod because having the camera be the exact same distance from your subject is very important. So we locked off our tripod to the framing that we wanted, got shot one with the lights on and the background extras moving, and then a very important step here is to not move the camera or the subject. Now, with the camera in the same position, locked off on the tripod, we changed the lighting and got rid of all the background extras, kept myself in the same position, and that's how we got this match cut. Now, a very important storytelling tool is something called the high angle shot. And what I love about the high angle shot is that it's a great way of making your subject appear small or vulnerable, or sometimes even overwhelmed. It's perfect for showcasing a character's insignificance in a larger world or highlighting the danger from above them. In my film, we used the high angle shot to actually achieve both. In this particular shot, we used the high angle shot to make my character appear weak and vulnerable. And in order to achieve this, we raised the tripod a couple feet above my eye level and then angled the camera down. Now, composition is always based off of preference, but I'm a huge fan of this particular composition because I just feel like it gives a very interesting look to the scene. By having me in this third of the frame and on the near side of the frame, giving all of this negative space, it gave it more of an uncomfortable feeling, which is what this scene was supposed to achieve. Another great way of using the high angle shot is by showcasing that bird's eye view, or to even showcase the danger in this particular shot. By placing the camera way above our character and using a wide angle lens, we were able to showcase the red alarm sounding and my character frantically looking up at the alarm, giving the audience a very interesting perspective. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have something called a low angle shot, which tends to do the opposite. Low angle shots typically make your character or your subject look larger than life, and sometimes even downright intimidating. These shots are used over and over again, especially in superhero films or intense dramas. Christopher Nolan used the low angle shot to portray Batman as a symbol of power and fear. He also used a lot of low angle shots for the Joker, framing him at this low angle gave him this sense of chaotic dominance. Now, one of the best ways to find creative shots and inspiration for your films is a tool that I use called Film Vibes. Film Vibes is a database of millions of shots from movies, music videos, and commercials. And it's amazing for gathering assets to create things like pitch decks, storyboards, shot lists, and even mood boards. And the best part about Film Vibes is the ability to click on any shot in our library and actually use the media player to view an entire video clip or scene. And on top of having the ability to download a PNG file, you also have the ability to download an MP4 or GIF file. And all you have to do this is set an in point and an out point, and you're able to download that exact clip. And you could use that to show camera movement in your storyboards or shot lists. And if you guys are interested in using Film Vibes, I'll leave a 20% discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. By far, one of my favorite shots on this list is something called a top-down shot. Now, in this particular shot of my film, we use the top-down shot to show the chaos and the agony on my face. And what's great about this top-down shot is that it gives you this godlike view of something that we're not typically used to seeing. Now, in order to achieve this, typically you would use a boom arm or some kind of overhead rig to rig the camera on, but we had to achieve this on our end with just a tripod. And the way that you could do this is by setting the tripod way above your character or way above your subject that you're trying to frame. And then you tilt the camera down to about 90 degrees. And as you guys can see in this BTS shot right here, it's a little bit difficult to achieve this, especially when you're using a tripod. And it puts your crew members in a little bit of an awkward position, but we were able to actually get the job done. And this is what the shot looked like. Now, another little added flair to the shot was the ability to tilt the camera as my head was coming back, which brings us to our next tripod shot, and that is the tilt. A camera tilt is a great way for guiding the viewer's eye to a particular point in the frame. It's great for showcasing the importance of a particular object and the significance it has to a person or an object in the frame. Taking a look at this scene from Inception, the camera tilt reveals the architectural wonders of the dream world around them. Now, we spoke about moving the camera up and down slowly, but another great way to guide your viewer's eyes is by panning the camera from left to right. A simple camera pan can really help establish a scene. In scenes like La La Land, the sweeping pan captures the scale and the energy of the whole ensemble performance, setting this whimsical tone for the film. Now, if you take that camera and you move it left to right really fast, you have something called a whip pan. Whip pans are great for adding energy and chaos to a scene. And in order to do this, you're going to need to get yourself a really good fluid head, loosen that panning axis, and quickly move your camera from one subject to another, like in this scene from La La Land, or even this scene from Whiplash. I think it's very important as filmmakers to lean into whatever strength that you have. If you don't have really nice Dana dollies or sliders or any kind of, steady cam rigs that can really get you smooth camera movement, lean into what you do have. Almost every filmmaker has a tripod, and there's so much that you can do from just having the camera on sticks, not only having beautifully composed static shots, but also having the camera tilt up a little bit nice and slow or panning left and right. And maybe it's about slowing your film down rather than speeding your film up. And if you guys are interested in learning more about filmmaking, me and my team have been putting together a course for quite some time now. We have broke down the entire making of this film that we have been in production for the last 6 months. We have gone through everything from pre-production and lighting and cinematography to post-production and editing and sound design. So if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link down below. You guys can click on that and sign up for the email list and be notified as soon as this course drops. I want to thank you guys so much for stopping and hanging out. My name is Zarfati, and I'll see you guys next week.